Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung said this after watching people repeat the same mistakes for decades, thinking they were thinking for themselves, when in reality they were just obeying invisible patterns. There's a moment between what happens and what you do about it. Most men never notice this moment exists. Everything happens so fast it seems automatic, inevitable. But it's in this invisible space where the difference lives between who gets thrown by life and who plays it. The human brain was designed to react to immediate threats, not to think strategically. Reprogramming isn't learning new techniques. It's dismantling the invisible beliefs that make you react when you should calculate. Strategists don't win by speed. They win because they see what others can't see. There's a pattern that repeats in almost all men. They spend energy trying to change what's beyond their reach. They try to mold people, control situations, adjust the external world, and the more they try, the more they realize nothing really changes. People keep being what they are. Situations follow their own course. What remains is exhaustion and the feeling of fighting against something that will never yield. Epictetus lived in a condition that exposes this truth brutally, a slave in Rome with no control over his own body, subject to any whim of whoever owned him, could be sold, beaten, killed without warning. Zero authority over external circumstances. Nothing that happened to him depended on him, and it was exactly there, in that absolute powerlessness, that he discovered something free men rarely discover. There's a territory no one can invade without permission, a space where authority is total, where no external force can enter. It's not in circumstances, it's in the relationship you maintain with them. He realized freedom isn't about controlling what happens. It's about controlling how you interpret what happens. It's not about changing the world, it's about changing the internal narrative you build about the world. And this internal narrative is the only territory where you have absolute power. Most men spend their lives trying to control the external, ignoring that there's a much more important game happening internally. They fight to change people who will never change. They try to force situations that aren't under their command, and they lose the only battle that really matters, the only one they can win, the battle for meaning. When something hits you, you don't control what happened, but you control whether it destroys or strengthens you. When things fall apart, you don't control the event, but you control whether it paralyzes or rebuilds you. The event is external, the experience is internal, and the experience is everything. Epictetus taught that there are things under your control and things outside it, and wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Not in trying to change what can't be changed, but in completely mastering what can, and what can be mastered is always internal, always your response, always your interpretation. The game was never out there. It was always inside, and most lose because they're playing on the wrong field. But why is it so hard to play this internal game? Why, even understanding this, do men keep reacting automatically? Because there's an internal war most were never taught to see. The human brain wasn't built to think strategically. It was built to survive. And this difference explains almost everything about why you act against your own interests. Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying how people make decisions. He discovered something disturbing. The brain operates in two completely different systems, and most people don't know these two systems exist, much less that they're constantly at war. The first system is fast, automatic, emotional. It detects threat and acts instantly, sees danger and fires all alarms, feels rejection, and enters total defense mode. This system doesn't think, doesn't ponder, doesn't calculate. It reacts. And it reacts using the same patterns that kept your ancestors alive when the threat was a predator, not an unanswered message or a sharp comment. The second system is slow, deliberate, rational. It can analyze consequences, imagine future scenarios, weigh options before acting. This system is what you call strategic thinking. It's where the capacity to plan, to calculate, to choose responses instead of executing automatic reactions lives. But there's a problem. The fast system is much more powerful. It has evolutionary priority. When emotion is involved, when there's fear, anger, desire, anxiety, the slow system simply shuts down, and you're left alone with the fast system, which isn't you. It's a survival mechanism running on autopilot. Kahneman showed this in thousands of experiments. Intelligent, educated, rational people making completely irrational decisions when under emotional pressure, not because they're stupid, but because the fast system took control. And when it takes over, there's no strategic thinking. There's only reaction. Most men live dominated by the fast system. They react to insults, react to rejections, react to imaginary threats, and call it being alive, having personality, being authentic. But it's not authenticity. It's slavery to automatic patterns that were programmed thousands of years ago for a world that no longer exists. Thinking like a strategist isn't having a different brain. It's training the slow system to gain space. It's creating a pause between stimulus and response, a space where the fast system can't act alone, where you, consciously, decide whether you'll obey the impulse or ignore it. This pauses everything. Without it, you don't think, you just obey, and whoever obeys their own automatic programming is never free, never has real control, never plays the game, just gets played. But there's something even more powerful that dominates both systems, something that destroys even the most trained strategists if they don't know how to deal with it. You don't seek results. Your brain seeks to stop feeling tension, and this difference destroys almost everything you try to build. Marcus Aurelius commanded the greatest empire in the world while fighting barbarian invasions, internal betrayals, and a disease that was slowly killing him. He had power to end any discomfort he wanted, could have fled battles, delegated responsibilities, sought pleasure instead of duty. But he realized something most men never realize. Discomfort isn't the problem. The urgency to eliminate it is. Every decision you make has an invisible component. It's not about what's best for your future. It's about how much emotional discomfort you're willing to endure now. And most choose immediate relief over distant victory. Every time, without exception. Seneca saw this in Rome. Powerful men ruining entire careers to end one day's discomfort. Emperors betraying strategic allies because feeling fear was unbearable. It wasn't stupidity. It was inability to inhabit tension without acting to resolve it. When you feel anxiety, your brain screams to do something, anything, that makes the anxiety stop. When tension rises, your brain demands immediate action to restore balance. When uncertainty tightens, your brain wants resolution now, even if acting now is the worst strategic choice possible, and you obey. Not because you're weak, but because you were trained your whole life to believe discomfort is a sign something's wrong. That tension needs to be eliminated. That feeling bad is unacceptable, so you act to stop feeling, and call it solving the problem. But you're not solving anything. You're just obeying the tyranny of comfort. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the only real war is internal, not against external enemies, against the urgency to end what you feel. He trained to endure physical pain without complaining, endure fear without fleeing, endure uncertainty without forcing premature decisions, not because he liked to suffer, but because he understood that whoever can't endure discomfort never has real control. Strategists don't eliminate tension. They learn to inhabit it, to feel anxiety without acting because of it, to feel anger without exploding, to feel desire without being commanded by it. They transform discomfort into information, not command. Most never learn this. They spend their lives fleeing small tensions and creating big catastrophes, because the moment discomfort speaks louder than strategy, you've already lost. But there's an even deeper trap, something that makes intelligent men defend destructive positions to the end. Men who always need to be right never have real power. Because the moment you defend a position as if it were your identity, you stopped thinking. You started protecting emotional territory. Ray Dalio built one of the biggest investment funds in the world based on a brutal principle. Being wrong is an opportunity. Defending being right is an addiction. He saw brilliant traders with above-average IQ losing fortunes because they couldn't admit a mistake. Not because the mistake was big, but because admitting meant feeling shame. And avoiding shame was worth more than making money. Most men don't seek truth. They seek validation for what they already believe. They don't want new information. They want confirmation they were right all along. And when something contradicts what they believe, they don't investigate. They attack, defend, distort, because the belief became part of identity, and questioning the belief is questioning themselves. Socrates spent his life saying the only thing he knew was that he knew nothing. It wasn't humility. It was psychological warfare strategy. He realized that whoever doesn't defend mental territory can occupy any territory. Whoever isn't stuck to a position can move freely. Whoever accepts being wrong without losing self-respect has a devastating advantage. Cognitive freedom. When you need to be right, you stop learning, because learning requires admitting you didn't know, and admitting you didn't know is feeling inadequacy, so you pretend you already knew. Distort new information to fit the old narrative. Ignore evidence that contradicts your beliefs, not because you're dishonest, but because your brain was trained to protect self-image, not to seek truth. Most conflicts aren't about facts, they're about ego. Two men defending positions neither really investigated, just because changing mind seems weak, and both lose, because spending energy defending mental territory is spending energy that could be building something real. Strategists treat beliefs as tools. If a tool doesn't work anymore, they discard it. Feel no attachment, feel no betrayal, just swap. And this capacity to switch positions without losing identity is what separates who evolves from who stagnated. Socrates was sentenced to death for asking questions, not for giving answers, because questions destroy certainties. And people who depend on certainties to feel safe hate whoever questions. They prefer to kill the questioner than revise the belief. The question isn't whether you're right. The question is whether you're willing to discover you were wrong, and most aren't. Because being right gives comfort, and comfort is addictive. But when you finally let go of the need to be right, something changes completely. You stop trying to control the wrong game. There's a mistake that separates common men from strategists, and it's not lack of intelligence, it's excess speed. Machiavelli spent 14 years watching princes, studied rises and falls, recorded victories and disasters, and noticed a pattern that constantly repeated. The princes who fell had something in common. They responded to the world before understanding it, acted too fast, decided without calculating, and called it decisiveness, courage, leadership. But it was just impulsiveness disguised as strength. Mental speed isn't power, it's surrender to instinct. When you think too fast, you're not thinking, you're reacting. And reaction is automatic, predictable, controllable. Anyone who understands your patterns can manipulate you, because you'll always do the same thing. Always bite the bait. Always react the expected way. Strategists think slowly, not because they're slow, but because they created space between stimulus and response, a vacuum where they can observe their own mind before obeying it. They feel the impulse, recognize the pattern, and consciously decide whether they'll follow it or ignore it. This pause is everything. Without it, you have no choice. You only have automatism. Machiavelli saw princes lose entire kingdoms because someone provoked them, and they needed to respond immediately. The provocation was bait. The quick response was the trap. And they fell because they couldn't endure the tension of not responding. Because staying silent, observing, waiting for the right moment seemed weak, and seeming weak was unbearable. So they responded and lost. Most men are like this. Someone challenges them, they react. Someone provokes them, they bite. Someone plants emotional bait, they jump, and they think they're being authentic, defending their own honor. But they're just being predictable, and whoever is predictable is controllable. Thinking like a strategist isn't having quick answers. It's having the discipline not to respond until you understand the complete game. It's enduring the tension of seeming slow while you observe. It's accepting that sometimes the best move is not to play yet. Machiavelli taught that time is a weapon. Whoever controls time controls the outcome. And you only control time when you're not a slave to emotional urgency. When you can wait, observe, calculate, and act only when action serves your interests, not when it serves your impulse. What separates strategists from common men isn't speed of thought. It's the capacity to create vacuum. An internal silence where impulse doesn't automatically become action. And in this vacuum lives all power. But most never discover it exists, because they're too busy reacting. But even when you learn to create this space, there's an even more important skill, something that transforms chaos into clarity. Strategists don't see problems, they see systems. And this difference changes everything. Charlie Munger built a fortune studying patterns. He realized most people live reacting to isolated events. Something goes wrong, they try to fix that specific event. Another problem appears, they put out that fire, and they spend their lives like this. Putting out fires, without noticing the fires follow a pattern, that they're not random, that they come from the same source. When you only see the immediate event, you never solve anything, you just postpone. The problem returns, with another face, another name, but it's the same pattern repeating, and you keep reacting because you don't see the system, you only see the surface. Munger taught that thinking strategically is pattern recognition. It's not calculating millions of possibilities. It's recognizing positions you've seen before. It's realizing that new situation isn't new. It's variation of something old, and when you recognize the pattern, you already know what will happen next. Great chess players don't think about all possible moves. They recognize the structure of the board. They've seen that position 1,000 times. Know that if the pieces are like this, certain sequences will happen, and they prepare beforehand, don't react afterward. Most people live blind to patterns. They see each situation as unique, unpredictable, chaotic, but it's not. Human behavior is pattern. Social situations are pattern. Even crises follow recognizable structures, and whoever learns to see structure instead of chaos has a devastating advantage. You start to anticipate, not because you guess the future, but because you recognize where the current structure will lead. You see someone making certain choices and know 3 steps ahead where that will end, not by magic, by pattern, because you've seen this happen before. And it will happen again. Munger spoke of mental models, thought structures that help organize reality, but deep down it's simpler than that. It's training the eye to see repetition where others see novelty. It's realizing that discussion you're having today is the same you had last month, just with different words. It's recognizing that mistake you're about to make is the same you made before, disguised. And when you start seeing patterns, you stop being surprised. Because nothing is surprise, everything is variation of something that already happened, and you were waiting. Life stops being chaos. Becomes board. And whoever sees the board plays different from whoever only sees the next piece. But there's one last mistake that destroys even those who see patterns. A subtle mistake. Dangerous. And almost universal. Men who feel nothing aren't strategists. They're walking corpses. There's a dangerous myth about strategic thinking. The idea that being strategic is being cold, calculating, without emotion. As if the goal were to kill everything you feel. Become machine, operate without heart. But that's not strategy. It's emotional death. And men dead inside don't build anything worthwhile. Antonio Damasio spent decades studying the brain. He discovered something surprising. People with damage in the emotional area of the brain can't make decisions. None. They get paralyzed facing simple choices. Because emotion isn't noise, it's information. Fear warns you of real danger. Anger warns you of violation. Desire warns you of opportunity. Without emotion, you go blind. The problem was never feeling. The problem is obeying what you feel without questioning. It's letting emotion command. It's confusing information with order. Your emotional brain tells you something is threat. That's valuable information. But it doesn't mean you should attack. It means you should investigate, calculate, consciously decide if that threat is real or imaginary, and choose the right response, not the automatic response. Marcus Aurelius felt anger, felt fear, felt deep exhaustion. He wasn't made of stone, he was human, commanded armies while dealing with betrayals, deaths, failures, and felt all of this, but didn't obey. He observed his own anger as if observing a storm, recognized fear without fleeing because of it, felt desire without being dragged. Emotion passed through him, but didn't control him. That's the difference. Strategists don't kill emotion. They change the relationship with it. Transform emotion from command to data, from boss to advisor. They listen to what emotion is saying, but don't let it decide alone. Because emotion is immediate, and strategy requires seeing beyond the immediate. When you feel anger, anger wants action now, wants destruction, wants revenge. And if you obey, you act in ways that will hurt you later. But if you feel the anger, recognize it, and consciously decide what to do with it, you keep the power. Anger becomes fuel, not command. You use its energy without being used by it. Reprogramming the brain isn't killing what you feel. It's learning to feel everything without blindly obeying. It's creating distance between emotion and action. It's asking, every time a strong emotion appears, is this information or is this command? Am I feeling something real or am I reacting to an old pattern? With each important decision, ask a question. Am I reacting to what I feel or responding to what I see? It's not about killing emotion. It's about not letting it drive alone. Strategists feel deeply. They just don't obey. And this capacity to feel everything while choosing what to do is what separates real power from illusion of control. Reprogramming isn't adding something new. It's removing what was never yours. The automatic patterns that control you came from outside. The clarity that frees you comes from within. And when you finally see the difference, no one plays with you anymore, because you stopped playing their game. Now you've seen how to reprogram the brain to think strategically, but there's another principle few know, something that can completely transform how you deal with power and influence. Click on the video on screen now. What you'll discover there changes everything.